On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, I welcome Angie Chaplin to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. On Groundhog's Day 2026, Angie will celebrate 6 years of sobriety, proof that alcohol use disorder can impact anyone, no matter their background, from a high-achieving small-town upbringing to what she calls her dark decade. Angie shares how she confronted addiction, reclaimed her life, and now helps others do the same through her work with the Way Onward. This will be a good one. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up wherever you are, whatever you are doing? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decorah. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow the podcast and get access to previous episodes on all of those platforms at Survive and Thrive 8791, the podcast. Don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to the show. Leave me a comment if you liked what you heard. If there's a topic or you know a guest who would love to share their story, email me at tdecora@gmail.com. Glad you could join us. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new episode will air on Monday and Thursday morning featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects such as, but not limited to, grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, mental illness, success despite challenges, etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. We do have a website reminder before I introduce our esteemed guest. I'd like to highlight our website, surviveandthrive8791.com. You can see what we are doing at Survive and Thrive 8791 and the events we are hosting. If you are a business or an advocate for mental health and recovery, we invite you to partner with us through sponsorship opportunities. Please contact us at surviveandthrive8791 at gmail.com. This is our guest and episode intro. And according to the internet, and the internet is always right, correct, Angie?
Of course.
Of course. Okay. You must run a tight ship over there, because I've had some moms come on and say, no, my children run the house.
Oh, really? Oh,
yes.
Really? Yes. No, I should say that my dog runs the house.
Your dog. You don't need the internet. You have your dog to run the house. Absolutely. Well, I have that same internal friend, except it is my wife, Sarah, and she's always right. So I don't need the internet. I don't need Siri. I don't need Alexa. I've got my wife, Sarah, and she is
very good.
Always
yes.
right. So I know what it's like to walk in your shoes. According to an AI artificial intelligence overview, millions of Americans seek sobriety annually, with recent data showing around 2.2 million adults receiving alcohol treatment and about 23.5 million adults considering themselves in recovery, while roughly 48.7 million people had a past year substance use disorder, indicating a vast number striving for sobriety, though many don't get formal help. The numbers fluctuate, but highlight that many individuals are actively working towards recovery from alcohol and other drug issues each year. Today's guest is one of those millions in sobriety. Today, I welcome Angie Chaplin to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Angie grew up in Decorah, Iowa, and attended Decorah High School and is a proud Viking. After high school, Angie would take her talents to Buena Vista University in Storm Lake, Iowa. She would earn a master's degree from Seton Hall University. Since then, she has worn many hats in her professional life. Today, I'm so glad you could join us via the cell phone and Bluetooth. Angie Chaplin, what is up?
Hey, so happy to be with you, albeit through the cell phone, and I'm not there in person, but winter weather is not always our friend this time of year, so we'll plan for a return visit sometime in the spring. We got dumped on a little bit this morning, and it's supposed to get frigid cold. And I know and winds and nasty stuff. So yeah, when the sun is shining and it's 78 degrees someday in the spring, it does get warm in Wisconsin, right?
A little bit. You almost heard crickets there because I'm like, nah, sometimes it does.
Right. Yeah. But I'm speaking as if it sometimes gets warm in Des Moines, Iowa too. So.
Yes. Speaking of Des Moines, that's the last time you and I had gotten together, and I know we're going to talk about the training that you did and that I took, and it was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I have yet to apply some of that, but I've got a couple of events coming up where I'm going to sneak some of that info in there. But the last time I was in Des Moines, holy smokes, there was like 40 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts. And, we were protected in that botanical gardens that you had us set up in. And so we were all good. But yeah, it was windy out there. How were your holidays, by the way? We're shooting here
they went well. They go so fast, and the older I get, the faster they go, which isn't fair at all. It should be the opposite. But they were lovely. I spent time with family and enjoyed safe travels, which is always a bonus.
I was going to mention, did you get back to Decorah? And that's not exactly how you and I started conversing a couple of months ago, but it was definitely something that drew the two of us together because my last name is Decorah. But the person that we're going to give a little shout out to, author Todd Kinney from Omaha. I know him, and you know him. Yep. We just didn't connect on the bottom of that triangle, but we have now.
It was so, because I saw that Todd was on your podcast, and I saw your name, and I thought it was like a joke because I'd never seen Decorah outside of my hometown or outside of my high school. And then to know that you were not all that far from Northeast Iowa.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you that my wife and I took, once in a while we take a little 3 or 4 hour car ride north, south, east, west, all over the compass. And I think I said one time, a couple of years ago, you know what, let's go to Decorah. Maybe we can get some hats and take some photos of some of the businesses that say, hey, I own a veterinary clinic, Decorah Veterinary.
Yes.
And we went there, and by gosh, I tried to name drop, and I did not get any discounts. I got some nice smiles and giggles, and I'll take that, though. I'll take that over a discount any day. Yeah, I was trying to use my last name, and it didn't quite work, but that's okay. We had a great time in Decorah, Iowa.
Yes, I grew up there. My parents actually relocated to Waverly, Iowa.
Oh, yeah. Heard of it.
In, early 2000s, when my sister, then later myself, would end up in that vicinity as well. I still have friends, and I still get back to Decorah every once in a while. It's still gorgeous.
Before we get to your story, I need to talk about our sponsor. Our sponsor, Buck and Honey's Restaurants, are a place that people can escape to. For me, it's a great escape from cooking dinner. Do you cook? And if you do, what's your genre, style, or cuisine?
Yes, I love to cook, and I'm Italian, so I think Italian would be my favorite and probably is my specialty. I've not mastered the art of cooking for less than a whole herd of people, so there's always plenty of leftovers, and my freezer is full of stuffed
sauces and stuffed shells.
Yes.
Well, my mouth is watering right now thinking of some linguine or fettuccine and some kind of sauce with their great food and drink menu, 5-star customer service, and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere. People keep coming back with locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Waunakee, and Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. Most communities in Dane County, which encompasses the Madison metropolitan area, can get to a Buck and Honey's within 10 to 15 minutes. And I do a little drum roll here. Have you been to Buck and Honey's?
Not yet.
Not yet. And that's because you are from Des Moines and you get up here once in a while. But the next time you come up to visit your friend, we'll go out. So that's an open invitation for you, and either you or your friend or whoever else.
Yep.
We'll meet at one of the Bucket Honeys, and you can test their Italian cuisine because they got a couple of Italian dishes on there. On the podcast, our guests follow the format for sharing their story like this. In segment 1, we talk about what was it like. So we'll hear Angie's history and a little more Decorah, Iowa stuff, what happened to get Angie on the podcast. And in segment 2, we continue to talk about what happened and get into what it's like now. And we discuss Angie's 5 suggestions for thriving. So you grew up in Decorah, Iowa, and you're a proud Viking. Tell us about what life was like growing up in Decorah, Iowa.
Well, Decorah, as you know, and we already touched on, is a beautiful beautiful community in Northeast Iowa. My dad started his career as a teacher there. My mom was at home raising myself and my sister. I grew up in a home that was very caring, very loving. I was a good student. I was a pretty good girl, I think. I would like to be described that way. And then just, knowing what was, I think, expected of being a teacher's kid and being in a small town. You have a lot of you can't get away with much when you're, everybody knows your family and everybody, wants to make sure everybody knows what everybody else has going on. I just knew that I couldn't get away with things. If I ever got into trouble, it would always make its way back to probably my dad, and then, that probably wouldn't go over very well. And the times that I did get in trouble, my dad was my 7th grade math teacher. I'm not good at math naturally to begin with. And
you can't see me on camera, but right now I've got my hand up. I'm not good at math either.
And as you might imagine, I like to talk and sometimes talk too much.
Really?
My dad's thing is that he would assign essays if you got into trouble in his class. And so I was assigned an essay for talking too much in my dad's class. And I think I got a B. I think it was probably my lowest grade ever at that point in his class. So I remember doing that. I remember I got detention by another teacher in junior high because I was talking during an assembly, and that wasn't a good thing to do, was talking again during an assembly. And I was active in band, and I was a cheerleader, and in high school, speech and drama, and I was National Honor Society. Well, I think that was in high school as well. Yeah. And then I also had a job. I, worked as much as I could and still keep my grades up. So that was important to kind of balance all of those activities and still be a good student. And so, drinking, it just wasn't a thing I did. Decorah was a small enough town that even if I wanted to try to do those things, I knew there was no point in trying to get away with it because it just wasn't gonna happen. So I was busy enough with all my other things going on that it just wasn't something I wanted to try to do. We lived out in the country, and so it wasn't like I was gonna sneak out or things of that nature. Yeah, one of the benefits, I guess, of being in a small town or living in the country was just that you don't have access or I never thought about doing those things.
Yeah, I was going to say the life of a teacher's kid or a coach's kid can be mixed reviews on those kinds of kids, and you were one of them, and you knew enough not to step out of line, and you were right. My kids were, again, teachers' kids, and I would often find out either by email or running into somebody in the hallway, and hey, can you mention to your son or your daughter at the dinner table tonight and talking a little less, etc. And I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. And would probably come down harder on the kids than the teacher did. And yeah, that's just how it kind of works.
Yeah, well, and yep, and we didn't have social media back then, thank goodness. And
exactly right. Thank goodness.
Right. And so things were just different, and being active in all the activities, and then, having a job, and I was busy enough without having to really worry about all the other things that in hindsight, I know that having, when you involve drinking into the mix, it just, that was a long time ago, first of all, but I don't remember it just being a big deal at that time for me anyway.
All right, I'm going to toss some things in from my wife and I went there a couple of years ago. I'm going to toss some things. I'm going to toss some things to you that you go ahead and comment on. The Decorah Eagles.
Oh, yes. Yes. When I was younger, either I was oblivious to the whole thing, or it just wasn't, the Eagles weren't there yet. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't until I went back for Nordic Fest, probably like 10 years ago, and I was training for a marathon, or I was running at the time, and I ran along the river and deliberately ran by the Eagles where the tree is, and looked up there and noticed them then. So now, as an adult, I'm much more in tune with the beauty of nature and just being much more aware of just how cool it is to have that. Certainly, I wouldn't have probably cared that much back in high school, and it would have been one of those things that I would have taken for granted.
All right, we're going to kind of dive into your story a little bit. And,
okay.
In the recovery world, I'm in the recovery world, you're in the recovery world. At a young age, no one says, when I grow up, quote, when I grow up, I want to become an alcoholic, destroy my life and everything around it. Nobody says that, but it has to start somewhere. When did you start to experiment with alcohol, drinking, partying? When did that start for you?
And that's interesting, I guess, in my past, because I didn't, honestly, 100% honestly, I did not have my first drink of alcohol until college. And it was either my freshman or sophomore year. I don't even remember. And even in college, I remember a couple of times of, quote, partying, like to the point of passing out. We would go out and I would drink and, get all giggly and whatever. But it was normal, what I would consider, and I don't know what the definition is of normal college drinking behavior. It wasn't problematic. I wasn't blacking out every night. I wasn't going out every night. I wasn't engaging in other adjacent unhealthy behaviors as a result of drinking. So it didn't become a repetitive pattern. I wasn't skipping class. My grades weren't failing. I was still, maintaining everything else in life. It did not become a problem until the rest of my life became a problem. And that really wasn't until 2010 when I was 40 years old. That was when life became chaotic and I did not have healthy skills or coping mechanisms to be able to deal appropriately with the chaos around me and within me, that alcohol was just there. And that's when it became the only choice.
Well, we talked a little bit before I hit the record button of a couple of things while we were going over the notes here, the show notes. A couple things stood out was you were such a good kid in high school, and your parents being, the work that they did, and you couldn't really step out of line, so you had some guardrails already set up for you. And you may have been such a great kid that maybe there wasn't that discussion of, well, we got to deal with some adversity here. There might have been a little bit when your dad delivered the bad news and the other teacher that you talked too much and we're going to have to, give you some consequences. But it just happened so few because you were a great kid that, you fast forward to when something happened in your life as an adult and something happened with your, to bother your mental health that you didn't know how to deal with the consequence, and you needed to go with what you've been maybe preached to, even in the Midwest. Well, to take the edge off, we got to have a beer or two. And then at some point it becomes a little bit unmanageable. And you're going to talk a little bit about that here in the first half before we get into the second half of where it really became unmanageable. But was there a point in your young adulthood and you said maybe in your 30s when it became a little bit of an issue and you started noticing it? What was your first thought?
For me, it's more about emotional regulation. And none of us, whether it's parents or teachers or administrators or students, none of us were talking how to deal with emotions. We weren't taught emotional regulation. We weren't taught nervous system regulation. If you were sick, if you had the flu, if you had, I use this example. I have asthma. So if I had an asthma episode, I went to the doctor and I got medicine to treat my symptoms for asthma. But if I had a emotional crisis, I didn't have the language to describe it. We have language, or had language back then, to describe I can't breathe due to diminished lung capacity, but we didn't have language to help us describe the symptoms of a dysregulated nervous system. Things are much different today than they were 40, 50 years ago in terms of acknowledging system regulation. Nobody talked about stuff like that. If you felt sad, you pretended you weren't. If you were mad, you pretended everything was okay. It just was an expectation that people went around being fine, right? That's I'm fine. How are you today? I'm fine. Well, heck no, you're not fine. I can tell by your face you're not fine. I can tell by your,
body language.
Yeah, right? Most of us are not fine, and we're never fine, but we just didn't know what to do about it when people said they weren't fine. So I don't buy into the blame and shame or judgment or any of that. I think none of us knew back then what we know now. And I think all of us did the best we can with what we had back then. Now that we know differently, we do differently. So when I know how I'm feeling, I know what to do about it in a healthier way than grabbing a bottle or a case or whatever it might be, that in my 40s, I didn't have the language, I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the support, I didn't have the systems in place to even be able to tap into the skills and the solutions that I needed.
Yeah, that's the impetus. That's the mission, the values of the podcast. Survive and Thrive 8791. What did you go through that you needed to survive? And then what are you doing now to thrive? And that is coping strategies, skills. How can I explain what I'm going through? Setting boundaries. And I'm just one person. It helps when I have a bunch of podcast guests come on and everybody has maybe that one or two same thing, but then there's 3, 4, and 5 are a little bit different. And people come away with the notebook full of some things that Angie Chaplin's talking about. Hey, I'm going to try that because I haven't talked about that before.
Yeah.
And you're going to get into that in part 2. The one thing that you had and I had, because we're about in the same age and tax bracket, is we had the code of silence, and you referenced that already by saying, I'm fine. And I don't know how many times that I had some trauma in my life as a kid. My grandfather passed away during high school, and all the teachers knew about it, but I think I had one, how you doing? And I responded just like you had said, I'm fine. And end of discussion. We moved on to good luck this weekend. But yeah, I wish I would have had something. I think you're probably the same way. Somebody who cared enough to...
Yeah, and I'm fortunate in that I can't recall any incidents like that. I know there was a significant breakup in college, and I think that was kind of a turning... I don't want to say a turning point. I think that uncovered a lot of things for me about myself. I think I would have called myself a codependent back then. And I think it was that type of realization that kind of helped me seek out counseling and kind of put more of a need to get some support from counseling and medication. And I think I went to the doctor. I think that's probably when I started more formally seeking some type of intervention, more than just talking to people. I think I went and sought counseling like at the college at Buena Vista. And then I think it was the counselor who referred me probably to my medical provider. And then he prescribed, I don't even know what it would have been back then. And then just as, situations in life have continued, it's just been a combination of different ways of coping with mental health conditions. And then obviously the substances that would come about later.
And we're going to get into some of the bottoms. Maybe you hit a bottom there with a relationship, but then rock bottoms before then we got hit that rock bottom to then change our mental attitude about our alcohol or substance abuse or whatever it happens that is taking us away from family and making life just difficult, not only for us, but those people that are in our circle. And because you've changed, because I've changed, our circle has become much, much better. So we're going to talk about that in here a little bit because our listeners want to hear the rest of your story and kind of what got you to choose the sober life. I need to talk about our sponsor one more time. Buck and Honeys has been with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew since the beginning with 4 locations in the Madison area. One is always near. People ask why Buck and Honeys. Owner Tom Anderson places a high priority on the mental health of his employees. He has a mental health professional available for them should they need support. I don't know how many businesses go above and beyond their EAP, Employee Assistance Program, but Buck and Honeys and owner Tom Anderson does. Angie Chaplin is in the Buck and Honeys remote studios via the cell phone to talk about her life and how she was able to get sober and into a life of recovery. She helps mental health and recovery professionals expand recovery pathways as certified navigators in evidence-based leadership practices to equip their clients with personal leadership skills. You'll hear about that and the work she is doing now. Please stay tuned. Don't change that channel. You're not going to want to miss segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. We'll be back.
If you, a loved one, or someone you know is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help and resources out there. Contact NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline, at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365 and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Emergency Crisis Services, dial 911. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, dial 988. To connect via web, chat, visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to say 3 words. I need help. Now, back to the show.
We are back. Welcome back to segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Tim Decorah. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. The podcast is where we feature guests who share their stories in hopes of helping others who may be struggling with what life throws at them. Today, I'm glad to be joined in the Buck and Honey's remote studios via cell phone by Angie Chaplin. She has struggled with depression for parts of her life. She's here to share her story in hopes of helping others who have struggled just like she has. And up until 4 or 5, well, going on 6 years ago, her only coping skill at times was picking up a drink. So she's going to help. Yep. She's going to help us today see how that played out, and then see how she's gotten some years of sobriety, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You had battled depression since being diagnosed during your college years, and you had mentioned that in segment 1 that you started going and seeking out counseling and going to a therapist, and your therapist kind of put you in a better situation. Since the show has a mental health component to it, tell our listeners how you decided to seek help in college. Was it symptoms that you were experiencing that made you?
I think being older and wiser now, as I think back to that, I had really what I would consider my first love, kind of long-term relationship, my freshman year of college. And when that ended, I had kind of developed codependent tendencies in that relationship where I really didn't know who I was separate from that relationship. And that would, in a way, become a recurring theme through a lot of my life, where I didn't feel a sense of identity for myself. I didn't know who I was, separate from my role or separate from my position or separate from this ideal of the type of titles or things I was doing or stuff I was expected to be doing. And I think, not being in a relationship then my second year of college, it was kind of like, well, now what? Now I have to recreate my friend groups. Now I have to figure out, who do I hang out with, or, who do I study with, or, who am I as just a normal college student, without a boyfriend. And it was kind of going through some of those normal, I guess, college sophomore girl emotions that kind of led me to talk to somebody in college.
When we talk about depression now, we know kind of some of the things. All right, I was locking myself in my room or in my apartment, or there were days where I didn't get out of bed, or the only time I got out of bed was to go and use the restroom, the bathroom. I didn't shower for 3 days. What was it that kind of made you think I need to seek some help here? Was it a call to your parents?
Yeah, that's, it's so long ago now. I think it really was that trend toward isolation and withdrawal, of just not having the energy to go anywhere or do anything, and feeling very emotional. I was 4 hours away from home, so a lot of homesickness, I think I would recall, and probably, just I being emotional and not knowing what to do about it.
Later in college, you would meet your then husband and proud father of your 2 boys, who we'll talk about a little later. And then you go into your adult life where you're establishing your professional career, and you're getting out there and wearing some of those many hats that you've had on.
So in college, I met my husband and father of my kids. Yep. And just to kind of connect some dots, got established professionally and personally, and we would land in Waverly, Iowa, which is where we would end up raising our family. And that's when, I started kind of recreating the sense of who am I. I was a wife, I was then a mom, and kind of reestablishing a sense of, I have these roles that I play, right? I am a wife and I am a mom, but I'm also a woman. I'm also Angie. I'm also a professional. I also am, a committed individual in and of, what I believe in and what I want to do with my life professionally. And that's kind of when I was working for a nonprofit at the time, and I was introduced during graduate school. I went to grad school late in life, and it was during graduate school that some of these kind of crucial self-identity questions started really bubbling to the surface. And, almost in a who the heck do you think you are kind of way, where I really started questioning myself around a lot of things. And that's when I was introduced to leadership in a more formal way. I think, going back to my high school days, I think I thought I knew what leadership was. I was drum major in band. I was secretary, or I had some position in student council. I graduated in the top 10 of my class. Thought I knew what leadership was, but I was never really introduced to it in an academic sense or in a formal sense.
You must have thought, well, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling a little blue. I'm feeling a little down. What is something that I can get involved in that will, take my mind off it? And some people go to reading, watching TV. Yeah. There's all kinds of things. But you started running, and the physicalness of running helps.
Yep. I took control of my health. And that's when I started exercising and started engaging in wellness. And running became really a way of tuning into my body and being healthier, making healthier choices. And again, being able to feel that I was in control of some of my own actions. And it was this attempt to kind of better understand my own sense of identity.
That paints a great picture. You mentioned getting your master's degree later in life, and you start to find yourself a little bit. You're running and doing some marathons. You mentioned you had many rock bottoms. What were some of the things that were causing these rock bottoms and then causing you to go to the coping skill that you knew later in life, and that was to drink?
Right. What I refer to really the start of it all, and I refer to the period of 2010 to 2020 as my dark decade. What started, or what kicked off that dark period of my life, was really a perfect storm of significant life challenges that I didn't know how to deal with. I had been working in a job for an organization that I loved. I was doing what I felt I was put on this earth to do with organizational and leadership development in the nonprofit sector. And then due to a change in CEOs, my position was eliminated. So I had lost my job. That was one of them. Secondly, a dear friend and colleague lost her battle with cancer. That was two. And thirdly, my marriage began to unravel. That combination, I didn't know how to deal with.
Life started to unravel some, and then talk a little bit more about that.
I did what, quote, normal people do, and a drink turned into a couple of drinks a week, turned into a couple of bottles a week, eventually turned into a few bottles a night. And that wasn't, of course, an overnight transition, but it became evident that as my drinking increased, my mental health decreased, and things snowballed rapidly over that 10-year period of time, to the point that my health, my physical health, not just my mental and emotional health, my physical health would become dangerously rock bottom to the point of hospitalization. So between, and really this gets into that, the latter part of that decade, I would try moving out of Waverly to a different community where I thought I would be starting over, nobody would know me. I would try new jobs to get to try again, a clean slate. I would do all the things that in my head I thought would fix the problem without wanting to admit that alcohol was the problem. At one point, I would drink so much alcohol that I would dilute the sodium in my blood and be hospitalized, and I would think, oh, well, it's because I'm drinking too much wine. So I'll switch to hard liquor, because that's not going to be the problem. It's the wine that's the problem. Obviously, I'm making all the excuses and justifications I possibly can make. That just even saying those out loud sound ridiculous. The mental health would continue to just worsen. There would be a suicide attempt. There would be an OWI, a night in jail, car accidents, more hospitalizations, a house fire, job losses. It just would continue to unravel on every level, and until that final hospitalization, where I am grateful that I'm able to be here and talk to you.
I am grateful that we had that friend of ours connected the two of us and went and did the training, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But to hear your story, and yeah, it sounds like it's probably a little bit different, but similar common denominators. That the big one was the alcohol. And at some point, and I'm going to mention a date here, that you became sick and tired of being sick and tired. And when I mention Groundhog's Day 2020, what does that day mean to you?
That day was the day that I was taken to the hospital for the fifth and final time due to excessive alcohol consumption. I was admitted in critical condition to the intensive care unit. I would be there for I was in the hospital for 5 days. I think the first 3 to 4 days were in intensive care, and then I would be transferred to different units. I remember, I have some vague memories of it. I remember being physically restrained at one point, and I verified this with my healthcare provider after the fact because I was curious if it really happened. Because I became so agitated, I was ripping out the IVs, and so they physically restrained me to the hospital bed. But thankfully, upon discharge, a doctor gave me in very blunt language how dangerously close I came to not coming home from the hospital. And that became the moment that I decided I wanted to lead a different life. So I entered an intensive outpatient program that consisted of group therapy, individualized counseling, and I was doing all the work. And then 40 days later, COVID put a halt to all the work I was doing in the IOP. And I was in Dubuque, isolated from family, unemployed because I had lost my job, and hit a turning point. You know, everybody else, apparently to me, it looked like, was drinking during this global pandemic. And here I was, you know, kind of struggling with what do I do next? And it was at that moment that I remembered what I had been introduced to in graduate school with leadership and a sense of identity and regaining my identity. That's exactly what I did. I used that moment in time to reestablish and realign myself with what mattered most to me, with my values, and used leadership practices to forge my way onward in leading a self-empowered life of freedom from alcohol use disorder. And I'll be celebrating my 6th year of sobriety on February 2nd of 2026.
I got to make sure I write that day down because it's a good day to celebrate not only my sobriety, but it's also good to celebrate those that are in recovery as well. And you mentioned, we talked about the bottom. I had to go back to today's, there's a reading, the daily reflections, and there's a quote in there, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit here. It says, "My desire to avoid hitting bottom was more powerful than my desire to drink." And that kind of sums up a lot of people who are in recovery. That happens, that unfortunately people have to hit a rock bottom, and that can be a wide range of things from hospitalization, an OWI, a divorce, a loss of a loved one, whatever it happens to be. It can be just about anything. Let's talk about what you are doing now. We're shooting on the 16th of January, and we're about half a month away from your sobriety date. I'm going to give you a little congratulations ahead of time. Hopefully I'm not going to jinx you, but let's talk about let's talk about what you are doing now.
I am the founder of a nonprofit called Brave Leadership. And our nonprofit focuses on strengthening the leadership capacity of community-based and public service organizations. So we work with other nonprofit entities, such as behavioral health organizations, city, state, government entities, pretty much any organization that operates on a not-for-profit status. And we are, public charity, 501c3. And then as an addendum to that, or as as an aside from that, I am also the founder, and author and speaker for The Way Onward. As you well know, being one of our certified facilitators for The Way Onward, The Way Onward is an evidence-based, a leadership training curriculum for individuals who work in the behavioral health space. And we train peers and professionals to be able to equip their clients with personal leadership skills so that they also can lead their way to a sustainable life free from problematic behaviors or substances that keep them from feeling the freedom that we enjoy.
For those people that are thinking about this line of work, or maybe they are in this kind of work already with mental health and leadership and recovery, and they want to get certified like Coach Decorah is, how do they get information to make that happen? Where can they go to see when the next training is or some of the work that you're doing?
The best way to check us out is on our website at thewayonward.com. They can certainly take a look at our website page. We also are on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I also make myself, of course, available, and all my information will be shared with you in the show notes for this episode. So it will be easily accessible for anyone who wants to learn more. We do train within organizations. So we do come on site if there's an organization who wants their team trained, in addition to our public kind of open enrollment style of workshops. We are in development for virtual training, and those will be probably releasing middle to end of 2026. Right now, they are 2-day in-person trainings and you can vouch for the quality of those experiences.
Absolutely.
But they have been very well received and have been overwhelmingly positive feedback. So yes, we're very fortunate to be able to have worked with quality individuals like you who truly get it for themselves, but also are passionate about equipping others with not only skills to be successful in recovery, but skills to be successful in life. And that's what this is all about.
Kind of one of those things where I like to go down and learn for myself, and then what can I share with my clients or people I work with or at presentations. But it's also one of those things where I wish I had this information back when I was having to make crucial decisions, and I went with the easy way out, and sometimes the easy way out was to do what everybody else was doing. And this gives you some of those tools and some ideas to better equip yourself and others with making situations and decisions a little bit easier with some science-based, research-based curriculum and skills. What is next for Angie Chaplin?
Continuing to develop curriculum that complement The Way Onward, and that might mean we are focused on different demographics or different populations like students, or developing collegiate recovery programs. I'm also a certified mindfulness teacher, so I am also active in developing mindfulness practices and mindfulness programs, and teaching mindfulness in practical ways that allow people to, on an everyday basis, learn how to manage their emotions and learn how to regulate life when it gets chaotic, because it's gonna happen. It is happening, and we all need to know how to take better control of our emotions and how to express them in safe, healthy ways. It's not about keeping our emotions bottled up, and it's not about, exploding when our emotions get the best of us. It's about how do we, maintain that healthy equilibrium on a regular basis. And that's really what regulation is all about. And so it's developing curriculum, it's talking to people, it's sharing my journey, it's hearing other journeys, and really creating this network, this community, this village of people, because we learn and we grow, and we are better in this entire space when we travel together.
It's not the only way. The way onward is not it's not the only way, but it is based in research, and it might be just as good. It might be a better way for you to handle the ups and downs of life and give you the skills. So I'm glad you had an opportunity to talk about that. Speaking of an opportunity to talk about some things, this is where the subscribers, followers, and listeners take out the notebooks, pens and pencils, and jot some things down. Here are Angie Chaplin's 5 suggestions that are allowing her to survive and thrive years of mental health struggles and eventually getting sober. Here's what you shared.
Yes.
I'm going to toss these in underhand softball style. Can you hit a softball?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Not well, but I can hit it.
Okay. There was a little lack of confidence when you chuckled, but then yes, I can do it. All right, I love it. Here's what you shared, and I'm going to toss these in underhand softball style. I'm going to have you hit these in 60 seconds or less, and I'll prompt you here. So, number 1, model the way. Go ahead and hit that.
Model the way is about knowing your values and aligning your behaviors accordingly.
Excellent. Number 2, inspire a shared vision. Go ahead and hit that.
Inspiring a shared vision is knowing what the big picture looks like and being able to articulate it in a way that invites others to join you.
Sharing the vision. Number 3,
yes.
Challenge the process. Go ahead and hit that.
Challenge the process is all about coming up with new ideas, new routines, new ways of doing things, and being able to embrace opportunities for learning when things don't go as planned.
And your program does exactly that if you or your clients don't have those kinds of skills. Number 4.
Thank you for saying that.
Number 4, enable others to act. Go ahead and hit that.
Enabling others to act is really the opportunity to share through collaboration and placing our trust in empowering others, and knowing that by empowering others, we turn that back around and truly grow our own sense of power.
I love it. And last one, number 5, encourage the heart. Go ahead and hit that.
Encourage the heart means finding opportunities for celebrating small wins and celebrating progress over perfection, making sure that we honor each other's goodness in all the ways that we can.
You dropped in a little recovery there. It's not perfection, it's progress. If I said that right. Progress, not perfection. What an episode. I'm so glad you could join the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew today, all the way from Des Moines, Iowa. Your new approach to life and how you managed living life with mental health issues at different parts of your life and then getting sober is inspiring. You are doing some amazing work, training others and living a sober life. Our call to action, Angie Chaplin just shared her story and how she has been sober for almost 6 years. She will celebrate 6 years on Groundhog's Day 2026. Here are Angie Chaplin's 5 suggestions to survive and thrive. Number 1, model the way. Number 2, inspire a shared vision. Number 3, challenge the process. Number 4, enable others to act. And number 5, encourage the heart. Final thoughts as we close another great episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. Are there any final thoughts, Angie Chaplin?
Yes, and as you would recognize, my 5 suggestions come from the 5 practices of exemplary leadership, which is what we teach as opportunities and really experiences to better lead ourselves from the inside out. And those come from the Leadership Challenge, Self-Empowered, which we teach and equip others to lead for themselves and others.
Mm-hmm. I was going to bring up this, and I should have brought it up a smidge earlier, but better late than never. There's a book out there that a lot of your curriculum and some of the stuff you teach is out there. Can you share with our listeners the book? Because if the trainings aren't there, or they want to get more than just the website gives some good information, but what is a book that they can get?
Yep, I am a certified master and coach for the Leadership Challenge. And that book and curriculum is written by Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner, my friends and mentors and gurus for the Leadership Challenge. That website is leadershipchallenge.com. And there is a plethora of information available on the variety of trainings and workshops and programs within the Leadership Challenge family. There's a lot of more information I can share than obviously what can fit in this podcast or any other podcast. So anyone curious about the Leadership Challenge from a programmatic perspective is welcome to contact me too.
Yes, I don't think we could do it justice in a 2-day podcast that we ran straight through 2 days. It would make,
absolutely.
It would be better for them to be in person with you, getting that one-on-one attention with you, and certainly those other folks that would be at the training session. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time with you for those 2 days in Des Moines. And those people that are interested, take a look in the show notes. It is a great program, research-based, so it's not something that's pulled out of the air. This is some good stuff that you can share with your clients, but you can also implement in your own life. So thank you very much for sharing all of that good stuff. On our next episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, we'll have another amazing guest in the Buck and Honey's remote studios who will share how they learn to survive and thrive. If you have a story to share, or you know someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecorah@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through, and with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive. Until next time, take care.